All right, always a little different doing this in here. I'll be paying attention, informal conversation, but we're going to kick off our study session tonight. Mr. Vile, can you go ahead and introduce the topic before us?
Mayor, Council, John Bile, interim city manager. So tonight's meeting is to talk about the Creekside Corridor project, a discussion with council that is long overdue, and I'm excited that we're taking this next step and getting some decisions and some directions on this project. So what we're going to do tonight is representatives of the Eugene Emeralds and Major and Minor League Baseball are going to address us first regarding their a proposal they have and some thoughts they have. This is a study session, so we want questions and answers to them, and so we can have a dialogue and you can learn more. Following them, I will make a presentation, and then we have a series of questions for council to contemplate and discuss and provide some direction to staff regarding the next steps. So tonight, first of all, we're going to hear from DG Elmore. DG is the Managing Director of Elmore Sports Group and owner of the Eugene Emeralds. Following him, Peter Woodfork is going to address you. Peter is the Senior Vice President of Minor League Operations and Development. Following Peter is Casey Brett, and Casey is the Senior Vice President of Business Development at Major League Baseball. And lastly, we will hear from Randy Wynn. Randy is the Vice President of Player Development for the San Francisco Giants organization. It's kind of fun. Randy played in the major leagues for 13 years, hit 110 home runs, 662 RBIs, and he was voted as an All-Star in 2022. How'd I do on the stats?
Yeah.
I got it? All right. All right, so first up, DG Elmore.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Mayor and council members. It's an honor to be with you. Our family first acquired the Eugene Emeralds in 1983, and the M's have been an integral part of Eugene, Oregon for these almost over 75 years. And until 2021, Eugene Emeralds was what we call a short season team. We would play starting about mid-June, and then in 2021, we moved from short season to what we call full season, to high A minor league baseball. So we're just 3 levels below the major leagues right now. What that did in 2021, that caused us to start our season in the beginning of April. So we now overlap with the Oregon Ducks, who we share a facility with, from the beginning of April until mid-June. And so it's no longer possible for us to to really play well together. And so we started to look for a new place to have a ball team and build a new ballpark. Over the last 40 years, our family has worked with 5 different cities to build ballparks around the country, from cities as large as San Antonio, Texas, to as small as Idaho Falls, Idaho. And these aren't just ballparks where we run 60-some games a year. They're multi-use facilities where we're doing weddings and we're doing concerts, and there are community events, scouting overnights, and family movies on the big screen. And that's the sort of thing that we're thinking about for Medford, is a civic location where community comes together, not just for baseball, but for all sorts of events. And I know that you've seen some eye-popping numbers if you looked at your deck, or you'll see them tonight. And those are, from my perspective, from building these ballparks and what we're seeing being built over the past few years, they're quite high, and we think we can bring a ballpark in closer to $60 million. And so that's what we want to be able to talk with you about tonight, see if we can make some progress, and see if this is something that you're all interested in working with us on. I'd like to now have Peter Woodfork with Major League Baseball come up.
Thanks, DG. Thanks, John. Thank you, Mayor, City Council members, and the community for the interest in minor league baseball. I'm happy to be here to be able to talk about this stadium initiative in Medford. It is, again, also with me, just so I don't skip him, is Andy Billig. Andy Billig is an important member of the minor leagues. He is the owner and operator of the Spokane Club in Washington. He's also a former public official, elected public official, one-time state majority Senate leader in Washington. And we invited Andy as well to help answer questions. He has a different perspective than us at the central office. He's a local operator, he's an owner, he's also been an elected public official. So we thought that he could provide just, again, another viewpoint on minor league baseball, on what stadiums do for communities. So again, thank you, Andy, for coming. Again, we're excited about it. We also know that building a minor league stadium is a complex issue in any community. We're well aware of that. It comes with great opportunity. It also comes with a lot of questions and a lot of doubts. So again, for us here tonight, we want to collaborate. We want to answer questions. We want to be transparent, upfront, and honest about kind of seeing if this will work. We think that Medford is got a lot of possibilities. We've seen the site. We walked it last year. We were here last year. And again, it's good being back. But again, we want to put out what we feel minor league baseball is, and we want you to ask us questions, and we'll answer them the best we can. Again, the last thing we ever want is a community to go in and make a decision uneducated. We want these to be successful. We want everyone to be on board with them. We want it to be a positive experience for both minor league baseball, the M's, and the community itself. So Casey Brett, who's a much better speaker than me, and you guys have heard from me a lot the last couple of weeks, I'll let Casey kind of walk through kind of big picture, the minor league baseball structure, use some slides, use a couple videos, and really give a visual perspective of minor league baseball. So again, we'll be around tonight. We'll be around whenever you'd like to follow up with any additional questions as well.
Thanks, Woody. I'm not the best public speaker, just to be clear about that. But again, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, and it's great to be a part of this discussion. So as everybody already outlined, as overseeing the business operations, I think we've seen a lot of models for success for when minor league baseball works well. And I like to describe it as the best sort of models are where you have this sort of three-legged partnership. You have public officials really getting behind a project. You have local operators, local ownership getting behind it, and Major League Baseball. And when all those things really play together, it works really well, and you really start to see the impact start to be brought down to the local communities, and really a transformation sort of happen. And so, what we wanted to do and what this presentation does is really kind of explain our vision for what that could be here in the Rogue Valley. We're going to go through a couple slides, but then a little bit of a video, and again, feel free to stop me if you have any questions. But for people who don't know what minor league baseball is, I want to give you some background. Obviously, we are a network of 120 development clubs tied to Major League Baseball. This is where people come in to hone their craft and hopefully become the future stars of the game. But I think that sells minor league baseball short. I think what we really represent are three things. The first thing to really call out is, again, we're major. You're part of Major League Baseball, the affiliation system. This is where the future stars of the game are born, and this is where they're going to be seen for the first time, and that is something that I think is unique relative to other development models. The second, family affordable fun. And I really emphasize the fun because, as DG was just talking about this, we are bringing entertainment to communities much further beyond the baseball field itself. Not just in terms of non-baseball events, but even the baseball event itself is something that is extremely unique and exciting, and something that is actually really great for baseball and non-baseball fans alike. The third is anchors in the local community. And this happens in a bunch of different ways, but what we like to describe it, and again, as DG sort of alluded to, I don't think of these as 120 ballparks across America. I think of these as 120 community centers across America. And you'll see that in a number of examples that we're going to show you here, that, again, when we bring teams to communities, it's something that actually goes well beyond the ballpark and the team itself. So with that, the best way to see it is actually to see some visualization in practice, and we put a little video together to show you that.
What if the best seat in professional sports was also the most accessible? In minor league baseball, you're close enough to hear the leather pop. Close enough to high-five tomorrow's World Series MVP. Close enough to feel like you belong. But don't just take it from us.
It's a really entertaining exciting experience, minor league baseball, and you should go. It's one of the great things that America has, and so if you're lucky enough to have a minor league team anywhere near you, support it. You won't regret it.
He's right. Where else can you find a Friday night your whole family can afford? Teams with names like the Trash Pandas and the Biscuits, a place where your kid watches their very first game and then 20 years later brings their kid to that exact same seat. And here's what a lot of people don't realize. Minor League Baseball and the majors, they're all part of one system, one pipeline. The rules you see in Major League Baseball stadiums, they were tested in thousands of minor league games first. Home Run Derby X, a global showcase of the game's biggest sluggers, tours through minor league ballparks. Our clubs don't just play in their communities, they're part of them. Connected to something bigger than baseball. Turning an empty downtown block into the place everyone wants to be on a Friday night.
Floor Field, a field of dreams come true for Greenville, South Carolina.
We were really embraced by the community, and then we began to learn all that a baseball team can do for a community.
Showing up season after season, generation after generation.
This hearing is focused on the economic benefit minor league baseball brings to communities across America.
This kind of community investment breathes new life into neighborhoods. It's created opportunities for local small businesses and has built something that my city so desperately has needed: community pride.
What you do doesn't just spur economic growth. It spurs memories with fathers and sons and fathers and daughters and mothers and sons and mothers and daughters.
It's not just a team, it's something worth building together. Only in MILB.
So hopefully that gives you a flavor for the type of experience that we like to bring to the communities that we're working with today. And again, I know that was quick, so I want to call out a couple specific things that we put in that video and just speak to a little bit further. So again, to that first sort of pillar of major. Again, what does it mean to be major? In my mind, it's not just the stars on the field. Again, as a reminder, like this is where the future Bryce Harpers, the Aaron Judges of the world, the Paul Skeens of the world are going to make their first professional debuts before they make their path to the big leagues. But even equally importantly, it's the place that a lot of San Francisco Giants players, whether it's through a rehab assignment, whether it's through just needing to get some additional reps in before they make it back, a lot of Giants players come through the system before they then go back to the big leagues. So big leaguers coming and actually being able to play and rehab and hone their craft again before re-entering the ballpark. So that's, again, why we are major and not just minor. This is also a step further in terms of the innovation of baseball. As many of you probably read about or heard about in the news, because we do talk about it a lot, and I think it's pretty positive. The rules changes that we implemented, pitch clock, automated ball strike systems. Those are innovations that were first tested at the minor league level. So in many ways, minor league fans are actually getting to see the newest version of baseball that will then be brought to the big stage, which is extremely special. And again, like as my job at baseball really at its core is to grow fandom. The minor league system, 120 markets across America, gives us a great megaphone and a platform to bring major league experiences back down to the minor leagues, and we do that on a regular basis. We've launched a new initiative called Home Run Derby X. We hosted 6 events in minor league ballparks last year, but Home Run Derby X takes former big leaguers, the likes of Manny Ramirez, Ryan Zimmerman, other top personalities, and we actually do a 3-on-3 home run derby contest in minor league stadiums as a way to bring big leaguers back down to the minor leagues and create special, memorable events. And that's something that we're, again, expanding in future years. So it's really exciting, but we like to say it, and you saw our tagline at the end of the video is only an MILB, but we also like to say there's nothing minor about minor league baseball. So the second thing that I alluded to again was family affordable fun, and I do emphasize the fun because, as you can see just from these pictures alone, we don't treat ourselves too seriously, and we bring a lot of entertainment to the ballpark beyond just the actual baseball product on the field itself. And that comes in a couple different ways. The first is our stadium experiences. I think what we're really proud about is our stadium experiences are unlike anything you've ever seen. That could be a floating river in a Texas outfield. That could be a crazy serpent slide in Wisconsin. That could also be a trained pig to bring out balls to umpires. We have, I think, 7 bat dogs across the system where bat dogs are actually grabbing bats that are left out from players after they've made contact, bringing the bats back. Again, like, we do these things because we try to make these memorable moments special for everybody, and it's a fun thing to do. It's a serious player development system, but it's also a lot of fun on the field that we bring to the field every single day. That extends also to the brands and identities that we bring to the ballpark. So our teams adopt local identities typically in terms of when they come to a community. One example is the Hillsborough hops, obviously like an acknowledgement of hops culture, you know, up in the greater Portland area, agriculture, but it could be something as crazy as the New Jersey diners, right? The Somerset Jersey diners, which is basically honoring all the local diners around Somerset in the greater New York area, and a collaboration that they did to just, again, celebrate great diner culture. This is something that's really special. We have weekly segments on SportsCenter that go in the minor league promo of the night, speaking to these kind of zany things that we do, but it's fun, it's energizing, and something that, again, our fans have come to love. When I also say family, I also really want to emphasize that I really do mean all families. We're really committed to bringing diverse communities together. There's one thing that is extremely special about baseball is just the ability to bring people together under one roof, regardless of, you know, stripes or origins or anything. And so for that, you know, I don't think there's any better example of that. Is just one example, our COPA program. COPA program is a program where over 90 of our clubs go out and partner with local Hispanic and Latino community organizations to create a special night at the ballpark, 3 nights at the ballpark every single year to celebrate their heritage. And that includes adopting new identities like the Soñadores in Hillsborough. That is doing things like changing out our promotion to bring in unique, you know, sort of cultural heritage elements to the ballpark itself. It's a great opportunity to bring people together, and this is one of many things that we do all the time to, again, just bring in a diverse sort of community and fan base to the community center of the ballpark itself. And I also want to emphasize affordability. This is something that we pride ourselves in. Minor league baseball is a great product, but it's also one of the most affordable products in professional sports. For a family of 4 tickets, 4 hot dogs, 2 beers, 2 sodas, parking. On average, you're talking a little bit over $100 to be able to bring that type of experience to your fans. And that's something, again, an average ticket price of $13. We think this is extremely accessible and something that, again, provides a lot of value and accessibility to communities such that these are things that you want to do multiple times through the course of a season. And last, that third pillar that I talked about, anchors in the local community. Again, we really pride ourselves in our ballparks being more than just ballparks. They're community centers. And that comes in a couple different ways. The first is, I think, just the use of the ballpark itself that you know, DG alluded to. Really, these ballparks become season-long, not just in the summer, but season-long assets that can be utilized for winter carnivals and winter light festivals. The spring 5K, the spring charitable initiative, a yoga charitable initiatives, summer concert series, fall Halloween sessions, fall Oktoberfest, even non-baseball events like Savannah Bananas. Savannah Bananas tour multiple minor league ballparks throughout the course of the season. But really, again, this is an asset that the community can utilize for a whole bunch of initiatives that operators like DG and Andy bring to, you know, with their collaboration, help to bring to life every day. Oftentimes, as much as 2 events per day being hosted on, at a ballpark on a regular basis. So again, something that is heavily utilized and something that's a real value beyond the baseball itself. And it's also something I want to highlight, multi-use facilities. Oftentimes, and this is, I believe 27 of the 120 ballparks are multi-tenant facilities. So that means that they're being utilized by either an NCAA organization, like a baseball team, or a professional softball organization, or a USL team, and other types of sports. They're also used for one-off events, like professional wrestling, or, you know, I'm sure Andy wouldn't be surprised that would love to talk about that ice hockey that they hosted at Vista Stadium for a true outdoor classic in a Vista Stadium in Spokane. But again, this is an asset that can be utilized in a whole bunch of different ways beyond the ballpark and the baseball experience itself, to really bring a lot of positive impact to the community itself. And what do you do when this is all working together through this partnership? What ends up happening is it boosts the local economy. And again, it's a holistic effort. It takes a lot more than just the stadium and the operator. It takes these types of initiatives. But when you bring all this stuff together, we have countless examples, and I'm only showing 3 here, from Fort Wayne, Indiana, to Columbus, to Greenville, South Carolina. But these are 3 key examples here where You show this partnership in practice, and the numbers speak for themselves. And again, we'd be happy to provide even more case studies, even more examples, because this is 3 of many. But again, we have plenty of examples of this model in practice, really providing a boost to the local economy, boost to local small and medium businesses, and extending their impact well beyond the 4 confines of the stadium itself. And again, like, as part of development, when you talk about the anchor of the stadium and the gravity that helps to bring to local communities, you really start to see in many instances where the stadium itself becomes a beacon, it becomes, again, a gravitational force where future development gets added on top of it. Here are 2 examples, again, from Fort Wayne, as I mentioned before, and Greenville. But you look at the transformation before and after. And oftentimes the cities and urban revitalization happen around the ballpark, and it becomes almost a new element of the city that never existed before. And these timelines are real. These are things that have happened that again, we believe strongly that could be brought to Medford and copied here in a meaningful way. And the last thing that I want to also speak to is just, again, the impact that minor league baseball can bring through our operators beyond the confines of the ballpark itself. Our clubs are incredibly charitable. They are incredibly, they're leaders as a force for good in local communities. Andy and Spokane are model examples of this through efforts, not just through hospital visits and the small things, but even things like massive cleanups of the Spokane River, which is, again, one of many examples of how Spokane brings significant impact. The Spokane Indians bringing significant impact to the local Spokane community. But when you total all that up, we have an initiative called MILB Together that looks at the holistic impact that minor league baseball can bring across communities. We're talking $25 million or more invested in charitable initiatives across our clubs every single year, 32,000 hours logged across all our clubs of community service initiatives. And some of these, I hate to say it, but tragedies happen, and luckily our clubs are really help to bring communities together when they need it most. I love to use the example of after the floods in San Antonio, not only our San Antonio club, but the entire Texas League, as well as all Texas major league organizations got together to help refurbish fields that were impacted by the local floods in San Antonio. These are things that happen constantly, and I think it's just, again, a kudos to the spirit of minor league baseball and the spirit to the operators who live and work in these communities, but they really want to make a positive impact, and they do on a regular basis. And the last thing that I'll also speak to is just, again, the strength of baseball. Baseball has never been stronger, and when I say baseball, I really truly mean one baseball, because while a lot of work that I do is towards minor league baseball and our major league initiatives, one baseball and Major League Baseball is much broader than that. We not only operate Major League Baseball and minor league baseball, but we help and support partner leagues. We support the Athletes Unlimited Softball Initiative. We have a strategic relationship with Little League. This is truly a holistic partnership where, again, across all levels of play, Major League Baseball provides really viable outlets for strong professional and amateur baseball in local communities that go well beyond just the minor league system itself. Baseball is also extremely strong because of the work that we've done with rules changes, with the pace of play, and frankly, some of the global superstars that we have on the field. Baseball's having a little bit of a moment and a resurgence this year. We've reached new records in terms of ratings, new records in terms of attendance. And again, I think it speaks to the fact that baseball is an exciting sport. It always has been, but these new rules have made it even more exciting, even for non-baseball fans, and the proof is in those numbers. We also still remain one of the highest participated sports when it comes to youth. Youth baseball, youth softball continues to be a massive participation initiative for us. 25 million kids play baseball or softball every single year, and we are still growing at a healthy clip year over year. So again, it's a sport that many kids adopt on a regular basis. So again, in terms of the strength of the partnership with this, I think by partnering with Major League Baseball as part of this, it's just a testament to the strength that you're going to be joining as part of that overall initiative. And the last thing that I'll also allude to before I kick it off to Randy is just that strength ties in with the affiliation system. And again, as part of minor league baseball, there's a parent major league club and then there's 4 affiliates underneath, and as part of Medford, the partnership with Major League Baseball is not just a partnership with us, it's a partnership with the San Francisco Giants, a storied franchise, a storied organization. And I'll let Randy speak to exactly how that amounts to, in practice, what that means as part of the Medford and Giants relationship.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me here. It's excuse me. It's a pleasure for me to be here to stand in front of you guys, speak to you guys a little bit. John, I appreciate that introduction. I didn't know my stats were going to be put on full display out there, but it's nice to be remembered. As a former player, you can see two of the uniforms that I wore up there. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. Family moved there in 1980. Went to high school there, went to college there, so it was really cool to kind of play for my hometown team. And then also the Seattle Mariners. I got traded to Seattle the week of my wedding, like literally the Tuesday of my wedding. That was a great discussion with my wife. She was really happy. But we really enjoyed our time in the Pacific Northwest as newlyweds, no kids, got a chance to explore Seattle, surrounding areas, Oregon. And that organization and the area has kind of a special place in our heart. So really familiar with the West Coast, done a lot of traveling up and down. Before I kind of get into my spiel a little bit, I know we're going to hear a lot about compliance kind of with the new stadiums, and Casey talked a little bit about rules and changes. As a guy that spent a lot of time around baseball and minor league baseball, I do think these are good things. I think that where we've come as a sport, especially on the development side, in terms of kind of raising the floor and having better facilities, are best for these young, I call them kids because everybody's younger than me, but the young kids in the game today. It really makes it easier for me to do my job and help develop them, turn them into the best, not only players that they can be, but also people that they can be. So I'm here to talk a little bit, shift gears a little bit to talk about kind of how the Giants see an affiliate in minor league baseball. Hopefully this is some new information for you. But I'll start on the major league side, and none of this is probably going to be a surprise to you. But, you know, when the Giants, as a major league club, look at an affiliate, the big part is location, right? Where's the location? How close are they to the major league team? Are they regionally close? Are they going to be able to cultivate, develop more baseball fans? Because I do think that's the job of a major league club, is to cultivate and kind of grow the game. Are you going to be able to do that in your region? And I do think that Medford fits that description. I think it's very close. I think there's already a lot of baseball fans here in this area. You know, when you talk about the Giants and we're in San Jose, that's obviously really close. But Casey talked about it. A lot of families go there when I go to watch games. It's families, it's kids. It's a chance for them to see the Buster Posies and the Tim Lincecums before they become famous. And that develops a bit of a relationship with the team and with baseball. And we find that to be a very positive benefit. You know, also, I think the second part of it is you want to be embedded or entrenched in the community. The Giants already have that here in Medford. Through the Giant Community Fund, we already have programming here. Full disclosure, I am on the board for the Giant Community Fund. I've been involved since I was a player. I've been on the board for about 5 years now. I am the chair, so I do say these things with a bit of bias. But the Junior Giant program, which has been here in Medford for 22 years, is a great program. It is a program, it's a free, non-competitive baseball and softball program for kids ages 6 to about 13 years old. We basically use sports as a vehicle to talk through our core principles, as we call them, and that's leadership, integrity, teamwork, and confidence. And, you know, for the Giants as a business, you know, already being here embedded in the community, as well as the ease and the closeness to the Bay Area, just an hour-and-a-half flight, you know, we feel like that this is a good place for one of our affiliates. On the PD side, which is player development, we look at things a little bit differently. There's probably 4 things that really come into focus for us when we're looking at an affiliate. Those 4 things are location, but it's in a different sense than our big league club, safety, housing, and food. Before I get into that, I'll talk a little bit briefly about kind of what my job is. So that's a very fancy title, but basically I just oversee the minor leagues. My job is to make sure that our young kids, turning them into the best not only players but people they can be. I'm in charge of kind of the player plan, whether that's on the field, what they can do better, you know, work on their fastball, breaking ball, kind of their plan to get them from the drafted kid that they are, mold them to get them to hopefully to the big league player. Also, I oversee our entire staff, which is about 50 people there. Players, we have about 175 here stateside and then about 80 in the Dominican. So location. I mentioned that on the business side. For us on the player development side, location means flights in and out. Can we get players here quickly from, let's call it our two major hubs, one being the San Francisco Bay Area, and that's players because of San Jose, that play in San Jose, and then also our full-time staff that lives in the Bay Area, myself, Buster Posey, our GM Zach Manazian, our full-time staff that's there in San Francisco. Everybody likes to get out and see our young players. So ease of travel, ease of getting in and out of cities. And then I'm going to back up a little bit. I'm not sure how familiar you are with minor league baseball, but picture it as a ladder. The top of the ladder is the San Francisco Giants. That's the goal. Then it goes down AAA, AA, A, all the way down to our Dominican Summer League. The levels are differentiated by age, experience, and let's call it baseball expertise. So the Northwest League sits kind of at the A-ball level. Right below that is our California League team, the San Jose Giants. So ease of, we need to get a player here, the step below, moving step up. And so just ease of travel, getting players back and forth from San Jose to the Northwest here in Medford is very important to us. Hopefully they're not going the wrong way and they're not going backwards. Hopefully guys are moving up, but you get my drift. The second hub is Scottsdale, Arizona. That's where we have spring training as well as our minor league complex. After spring training, we send our teams out to affiliates, so it's nice not to have them stop over 7 or 8 times, but having direct flights to their location. So location is kind of the first thing that we look at. I'm going to talk a little bit about economics. I'm not an economist. This is not about economic development, but just more kind of our expenditures, our expenses, like what goes into kind of putting a team in a city, just so you can kind of understand like how this affects kind of the other things that we look at. Throughout the year, we're in a city about 6 months in the summer, right? We're in the community, we're part of the community, and so we have 30 players, and then we might have a couple guys on the injured list. So let's call it 33 players pretty much at all times, and then about 7 people on the staff. Staff includes manager, coaches, trainers, strength and conditioning. So 40 people at all times. We spend on housing, food, et cetera, on just those 40, about $600,000 to $700,000 in those 6 months. That's what we spend. Pretty good chunk of money. The reason that number is going to stay the same is there is an amount of money, a monthly salary for players. If it is below that, we are required to pay for their housing. On our Northwest League team, which Medford would be in that league, all of our players last year, all of our players this year, all of our players a couple years ago were all under that amount. So we pay for the housing. We handle it, we look for it, we pay for it. That's on us. On the staff side, in our staff contracts, we give housing stipends. We are also on the hook for that. So that is something that we are committed to that isn't going away, that we pay for year in and year out. And that number stays pretty much the same. Like I said, like a player might move up, but we always backfill. And so that the number of people that are here is never less than 40. A lot of times it's more than 40. You have people like me coming in, or our senior director of player development coming in. We have any number of scouts, analysts, biomechanics people. We have coordinators. For every position group, there's a coordinator, outfield coordinator, infield coordinator. We have 3 pitching coordinators. We have 2 hitting coordinators. They are constantly on the road looking at players. So when those guys come in, there's obviously flight in, rental car, hotel, food. That's above and beyond that number that I talked about, our 40 people. And then also, if you also consider the visiting team coming in, hotel, food, that's a whole nother thing too. So with that in mind, the other things that affect a city for us, safety. This one's pretty straightforward. We feel like as an organization, we owe it to the people, our employees, to provide a safe work environment, right? That's kind of goes without saying. We do not have any young ladies on our staff. Our AA team did. We don't have any currently this year on our Northwest League team, but we do have nutritionists. We have analytics people, women that come in. And so a young lady at a ballpark, it's 10 o'clock at night, do they feel safe getting from the ballpark back to where they go? That's a big thought for us. And with the kids that are 21 to 25-year-olds, you know, are they safely getting around the town as they're, excuse me, as they're integrating into the city? Those are things that we consider. Housing. So I talked about the money side of it. I said it is on our plate to find this each and every year. So can we find housing that is close to the ballpark? We don't want our kids commuting 45 minutes to an hour. Can we find multiple locations? Our coaches don't necessarily like to live where the players are, if you can imagine. They want a little bit of space. So for us, finding a good partner in housing that we can go back to year in and year out is important. You know, that's extra man hours for my staff to fly places. Obviously, things look different on the internet. You could do it that way, but not the best way. But trying to find local housing and good partnership is important. And the last part, food. We are required to furnish 2 meals a day for those 40 individuals that I mentioned. We spend about $100,000 per summer on an affiliate. And as you can imagine, having a wide range of healthy food is a big deal. So the ability to find that is important to us. Our team in San Jose, they love Chipotle. But as much as one may love Chipotle, if we lean on Chipotle too much, we get rumblings towards the end of the year. So having a wide range of food options are important. So for us on the player development side, it's a little bit different than what the team looks at. I said that those are kind of the four that are top of mind for us, but I really think that Medford would be a good partner for us. Thank you.
So I think that's kind of the end of our formal discussion, but again, want to be available. I know that you all have questions, and again, to say it is a big step, we understand it's a big step. We understand moving forward is important, and everyone wants to have as much information as possible. So again, we're here, DG included, to answer the questions that you all have. So the setup isn't perfect for it, but we'll jump up and down and make it work.
Yeah, so hey, thank you all for that portion of the presentation and certainly for making it out. You know, the easy part is just the plus and the benefit to the community. I don't think there's any question that having a team, having these events is not a public benefit and a community asset. It's really where we break down is we got to start talking some dollars. So with that said, John, do you want me to allow any questions that may have come up now, or do we want to talk about maybe some of the other issues that we have going on?
If there's burning questions, it might not be bad to ask now, but I would suggest if I could make my presentation, some of the questions might be jointly answered by both of us. So maybe it's worth me going through my presentation now.
Okay. Anybody have it? Nope. I'm shocked.
It's not a burning question, but I know John's not going to answer it. I'm not ever going to ask for predictions for the future, but how frequently is there a shuffling of the affiliated minor league teams? And not necessarily the contract negotiation, but like, Randy, I'm not going to remember. I don't know.
The Giants to the...
Exactly.
We have not in the last... I'm going to be careful what I say because my memory's not tremendous, but in the last 4 or 5 years, we haven't flipped teams. One of the parts of restructuring previously in 2020 was there used to be a lot of restructuring or re-movement of teams. So 1 year DG could have, in Eugene could have the Giants. Next year you could have the A. 2 years later you could have the A's, and they used to move every 2 to 4 years. That was not good for fans. It wasn't good for teams, to be honest with you. Major league organizations, there wasn't a lot of consistency. Again, there was guaranteed to be a team there, but if 1 year you had the Red Sox, then you had the Yankees, and then you had the Marlins, then again, it wasn't great. This one is a 10-year license. Now again, if there's something happened, there's the ability to change someone. But it would have to be an agreement with both the Giants, would have to decide that, hey, maybe the A's would be a better fit. I just can't see that happening, again, but hypothetical or predicting the future, I've been wrong before.
And by the way, this is a study session, it's casual and all that, but in the hallowed halls, that was an excellent question, and you always have excellent questions. So I'm excited to call on you again. Any other quick questions? Sure.
So just in regards to the licensing agreement that you were talking about for 10 years, is that the same thing as the contract that's up in 2030?
So
okay.
The license agreement has been 10 years for the last 40 or 50 years. It expired every 10 years. It was renegotiated every 10 years. That hasn't changed. I think the concern was that the last time through, there were significant changes in the license, which hadn't happened since 1994. But in 2010, it was negotiated. In 2000, it was negotiated. In 90, it was negotiated. So it's, again, in 80. It's been on 10-year runs for, I want to say, the last 50 years, but don't hold me to at least the last 30 or 40.
Super. Anything else that can't possibly? Mr. Bile.
Can we get Mr. Vile's stats as he's walking up? Years served.
10 million miles of roadway paved.
Yeah.
Miles of pipe that you've rescanned.
Yeah, let's talk about.
Hey, you know what though? Weren't you it wasn't county engineer of the year, but what were you not too long ago? Maybe in 2022, in fact.
I was two-time county engineer of the year. It happened twice.
Yeah.
For the state of Oregon. So that doesn't quite compare with 662 RBIs though. So what I wanted to do is give a quick overview of the whole Creekside project. These gentlemen talked about the stadium, but as you know, the Creekside project is a much bigger project. And so I wanted to touch on the status of the conference center, the Eugene Emeralds, the work done to date, and then talk about some cost estimates. Ryan's going to come forth and discuss how we could finance a stadium. I think it's necessary that council is informed about what staff feels are potential risks, and then at the end there are questions for council for you to deliberate and instruct staff on. So the conference center is really what the Creekside Corridor started around. And this has been discussed for years in the city of Medford. We have not had a conference center for decades. The closest thing we have is over in Ashland, and it's kind of questionable in terms of how useful it is for us. And so this has been a priority for previous councils. The chamber is very excited about it, so that this has been a topic of discussion for some time. In 2024, we contracted with Hutton Partners, a very well-known firm that specializes in market analysis for a conference center, and they completed a study. That study was very positive toward a conference center in Medford and noted that we have a very strong market opportunity to support a conference center here with an associated hotel. They provided two scenarios, what they called the small scenario, which was a hotel with 165 rooms and a 18,000 foot facility, and then a 220 room hotel with a conference center, 26,000 square feet. They recommended the large one is what would be best suited for our in our area. And as you can see up here, they predicted high operating revenues and a very successful facility. It's not cheap. The large scenario at that time was estimated a little over $100 million, and they did recommend it be located downtown. Hence, this was kind of the beginning of the discussion on the Creekside Corridor.
So just looking at those numbers there just real fast, 103.7 million, that would include that includes the hotel construction as well as the conference center, right? It's not $100 million for 26,000.
No, I'll show it. Well, it's funny you ask.
Oh.
There it is. So what that included was a hotel that was, I think it's a 10-story hotel, a conference center below it with a number of large ballrooms and individual conference rooms, and a parking facility structure next to it. And I would note that this was done in mid-2024. That was when the city was changing city managers and we had a big transition. Not much has been done with this whole process since then. So at the same time, the Eugene Emeralds, as DG talked about, was experiencing some challenges themselves. A minor league team has been in Eugene since 1955. They have a long history in the Northwest. They're affiliated with the Giants, and they play at the PK Park, which is owned by the University of Oregon, the Ducks. PK doesn't meet major league standards, and so they needed to move. In May of 2024, they were partnering with the county on a ballot measure to provide $15 million to help finance a new stadium at the fairgrounds, and it failed. That put the Emeralds in a position to where they needed to see what else was available in the Northwest, and they came knocking at Medford's door saying, "Are you interested?" And that's kind of how that started for us. So in April of last year, the Emeralds and Beacon Economics, a firm that specializes in economic studies, made a presentation to this group in a study session. As it was a study session, no formal decisions are made in the study sessions, but the direction to staff was clear: continue to explore this. This was an exciting opportunity where a stadium could serve as an anchor facility, can be part of a larger, broader downtown redevelopment project. You did note that it needed to be funded in a way that was not a burden to existing taxpayers, and to help kick that off, the mayor formed an ad hoc steering committee that has been meeting regularly to continue to advance the project. So one of the things that we did at that point was we commissioned several studies, and we needed to get some experts involved and some folks that have more experience than we do in doing this kind of work. So we commissioned 3 different studies. The first one was done by Beacon Economics, noted that had helped with a previous presentation to you. They conducted an economic study for a baseball stadium, and their findings in here, and there's a lot of words. KJ's mad at me for having this many words on a slide, but just to summarize real quick, it noted that there's large construction benefits in the terms of jobs and economic impact. They noted a sizable operational benefit going on, 379 full-time jobs and $18.3 million in labor income. There are social benefits that the folks who already talked to you have already touched on. Having a family-friendly event facility in the middle of town that can be used for multi-purposes is a neat thing to have in your community. It's also fun. Sports tends to bring people together and it creates a sense of civic pride. And having the baseball team in your town that you get to root for is fun, and it creates some civic pride. And lastly, they noted in their study that this could be a very good opportunity for a revitalization anchor in the downtown area. The next study we did was CAA Icon. This is a large consulting firm that specializes in sports stadiums, and they did a very comprehensive analysis that looked at the attendance throughout the nation for minor league baseball. They looked at market trends, financial analysis, and they gave us a very comprehensive report. This slide here is very fine detail. You don't need to worry about it, but I just note they did a big comparison on how the Eugene Emerald stacks up against all the other high A teams. Right now they're at 20th out of 30 in terms of attendance. They're higher than some of the other Northwest teams and lower some of the Northwest teams, but they're right in the middle of the pack in terms of attendance at their games and how they're doing. One of the most beneficial things that CAA Icon provided to us was a whole series of facility benchmark case studies where they looked at minor league stadiums across the nation and gave us a whole bunch of information about how those facilities were built, how they were financed, what their attendance is, what they cost, etc. And that has been a very helpful thing that has assisted us. This particular example is a case study in Everett, Washington, for the Aqua Sox team, another team in the Northwest League for this minor league league. And they're in the process of standing up a stadium themselves right now. And so it was a very comparable facility that was very useful to us. And like I say, they included for all of these a variety of ways to fund them and how that work is completed. And then the last study we commissioned was with Populous. Populous is a architectural design firm that specializes in sports stadiums. They actually participated in the design of the of the Everett Aqua Sox facility that's currently under design and getting ready to start building. And they did a study on what a stadium could look like in Medford and did conceptual drawings and did some analysis. This slide here I'm just sharing to show you the size of the stadium in terms of seating. They're noting that the design for this was 2,000 fixed seats and 2,400 fixed seats, and then an additional 1,600 flex seats, where standing room only, patios, and that kind of thing. So for a total seating capacity of just under 4,000 people. And it's an attractive looking facility. They located in Hawthorne Park, which is what we directed them to do. And just to refresh everybody's memory, the orange line there on the left of the stadium is a very, very large sewer trunk line that serves the entire valley. So they were trying to stay away from that. That's owned and managed by Rogue Valley Sewer Services. Gave us a series of conceptual drawings. So at this point, we were progressing on continuing down the road of developing a stadium ourselves. And while that was occurring, we were approached by a local land use consultant that had been working with some other folks regarding a larger development in the Creekside Corridor. What they were proposing and wanting to discuss with us was a development that would develop the entire area bounded by 4th Street on the north, Main Street on the south, Riverside on the west, and Bear Creek on the east, where that entire several block area could be redeveloped and include a variety of uses, including mixed use housing, a conference center with a associated hotel, and redevelopment of existing property. What was interesting to us is they also said we could also participate in the construction of a stadium. So at that point, the city kind of shifted to, is this an opportunity for us to get the entire Creekside development done in under one development proposal, rather than the city working on a stadium and private folks working on the west side of the freeway? So that's what we did. We originally started this as a standalone project for us. We transitioned to a merged facility where both sides of the creek were being developed. However, since that time period, the private consulting folks have pivoted away from the stadium and would prefer to look at the west side themselves. And so we're back to a kind of an uncoupled single development approach where the city's in the lead position on the stadium. Regarding development on the west side of the freeway, there might be a lot of progress there. We're really not sure of the progress on the west side of the freeway, what is going on. But like I say, there might be stuff that we're just not aware of it, but we do know site control has not been obtained, and ownership of the property is still a challenge on the west side of the freeway. So stadium costs. So Mike asked about numbers. So here we go. So we took the Populous design and we used that design and we shared that with several folks. I want to emphasize that this design is a conceptual design only. This does not have bid items. This is not a detailed design that you could put plans and specs out and go ask someone to build it. It is a conceptual design. Probably in the range of having a 30% contingency is safe, so that it could cost considerably more. It could also be cheaper, but it is a conceptual design. It's the best available data we have at this point, and all of our numbers are based on that. We stand by those numbers, but it is based on a concept. I would note that under Populus's design, they did not provide any parking on site, and they also had the stadium built what's called under a pit set, to where the playing surface of the field is lower than the ground elevation. So you walk in from the sidewalk into the stadium and you go down into your seats. None of the cost estimates provide a pit set. It's expensive. You're digging a big hole in the ground. And so all of it is a little bit different design. So we approached 2 local contractors. Those local contractors were Adroit and Outlier, folks that we know well in our community that have a long history of delivering quality projects in our area. The average of those 2 bids, or not bids, the average of those 2 preliminary estimates was $86 million. We then took and provided this, or we took a look at what was happening in Everett, Washington with the Aqua Sox. Their design is at 60% plus. Their current estimate is around $102 million. I would note that what the City Council approved for Everett, Washington originally was a stadium that would cost $82 million. It has now increased in cost to $102 million. And according to the Stadium Finance and Advisory Committee, it could go as high as $133 million. And lastly, we provided this design to Ryder, Levitt, and Bucknell, a large global construction company who is also working with Populus on the Everett, Washington Stadium, and said, here's this concept plan. What do you think this would cost? They came back with an estimate of $115 million. So at this point, what I would like to do is I'd like to ask Ryan to come forth and saying, if these are our cost estimates, how would council go about approving a financing plan to build a stadium with these numbers?
Real quick.
Is Sam presenting tonight or no? Is Sam presenting tonight on any of this? Okay. Do you know, off the top of your head, this may not be definitive, do we know at this point whether or not that sewer line is going to be prohibitive? And do we know if the proximity to I-5 may be prohibitive?
So the answer to the second one is our understanding is that proximity to I-5 would not create problems. The sewer line, we do not know additional design work would be necessary. What I will say is sewer lines can be moved. That is not a showstopper, but it would not be cheap. That is a very large line that would be expensive, but we move sewer lines frequently. But it will cost you.
And we'd find out that'd be part of what we're discussing tonight. Is do we move forward and find out if we have to move it? Okay.
Correct.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Ryan Martin, your Chief Financial Officer and Assistant City Manager.
Hey, Ryan, just one quick question real quick from...
Yeah, we don't have any estimate then on the pit set and the parking. You can't give us any ballpark on that?
None of the estimates that we did did a pit set. Nope.
Should we add in another 10% contingency, you think,
You know, I wouldn't even want to venture to guess, Kevin. It's going to be more, and in all honesty, I think the biggest thing with the pit set that needs to be explored is we do need to determine if it's feasible. No geotechnical work has been done. We're right next to a creek. I don't know if the water table is going to be such that would make that an impractical design. I do know that there's lots of stadiums built without pit set. That is not uncommon.
All right, so I'm going to present the financing scenarios that we came up with based on the cost estimates that we had from the 2 local contractors, as well as the other 2. So the first one, as John mentioned, the estimate's $86 million. That's the local contractors, the average of Outlier and Adroit. And we kind of have this separated where at the top is the amount of the construction, so $86 million. Under that is the bond amount that we would have to bond as a city to participate and put towards this project. The total debt repaid is the bond amount, which is the principal, and also the interest. So right now with current interest rates, the interest is almost as much as the principal, as you can see by the $117 million. And then the total cost includes that total amount that we would have to repay, and it includes the difference between the construction and the bond amount. So The difference of those, the construction and the bond amount is $26 million. Excuse me. And you can see that at the bottom because in green, because that's a one-time contribution that would have to be made from outside of the city, outside of urban renewal. So we would look at the team, the state, or other sources. If we then look at the top, all those in blue are essentially the annual payments that we need to make to be able to make the bond payment. So it starts with urban renewal, MIRA 2.0. And on this scenario, it's a little bit over $68 million. We've talked a lot about the maximum indebtedness and how much council may set that for the new urban renewal district. And so let's say it's $100 million, and basically that's how much the new urban renewal district can collect. This entire $68 million does not go towards that maximum indebtedness. About, we'll say half of it or so, we'll say like $34 million would go towards that. So there'd still be capacity to do other projects in urban renewal, but it's still a sizable amount to utilize. MIRA 2.0 and the use of these funds do restrict quite a bit what we can do with other funding sources. And that's because urban renewal would not be able to make the full debt service payment for a stadium for probably 7 or 8 years. And so a lot of these other funding sources are in those early years to help us generate enough revenue to be able to pay for our debt payment, which banks really love. The next one is the car rental tax, which is the same in all three scenarios at a 2% increase. So right now it's 12.5%. This would increase it to 14.5% and generate about $500,000 per year. We've talked quite a few times about the Parks SDC increase, and this would basically take place of the sewer treatment SDC that we currently have. Our thought process with that is basically two things. Number one, with the massive upgrades that we're doing to the wastewater treatment plant, we're likely not going to need a lot of capacity increasing projects in the near term, and so we believe that we could reduce the sewer treatment SDC and then increase the parks SDC by the same amount. So collect the same amount of money for a different purpose, but also not put any more burden on our developers right now. The park utility fee is different in each scenario. In this current one, it's $1 per month per unit for 15 years. The annual lease payments from the team, this was a proposal from the team, but without any lease agreement, nothing set in stone yet, of about $8.8 million in over the 30 years. And then the stadium naming rights, this was an estimate of the city collecting about 70% of the naming rights, and we just looked at average naming rights revenue from similarly sized cities and stadiums. And then unidentified sources, this is any source, whether it's from the city or outside of the city. This is in the really early years, so the first few years, just to be able to make our debt payments as urban renewal is ramping up. We need a source to be able to make those debt payments, and so that's what that $3.8 million is.
So before you go off this slide.
Yes.
So in the original economic analysis of this, so for example, they said, what are your uses that are going to generate revenue? And so in general, what I see is basically baseball in here, I think. And not that we should rely on this, but okay, in the economic study, they said, hey, you're going to have, a big concert once a month in here. And then there was also things that had to do with holiday events that all seemed to be revenue generators, or were assumed to be. In this model, those are not considered as a revenue source for financing stadiums. Is that correct?
That's correct. And I think the reason is that at this point, we don't know if the team would collect the revenues from those events, and then we would have, the lease payment would come to the city, or if the city would generate any type of revenue from those events. So you're correct, though, this does not include any of those.
Right. And I think as far as general operation goes, we're thinking the city operates, or how do we think? In other words, if we wanted to have a separate concert, how would that work? Or we just haven't got there yet?
That is still subject to negotiation.
Okay.
We don't have a clear answer on that yet. There are multiple different ways in which that's structured.
Okay. Biggest takeaway right now is we're really looking at this repayment as primarily baseball, minor league baseball focused.
Mayor, I would just add, per what Eric was noting, there are so many different ways to develop lease agreements and on these stadiums that there's every stadium's unique. Every stadium has a different way of sharing revenue. They are all different, and we have simply not got to that point. We didn't include it in this revenue. Could it be a source? It could be.
Right.
But we didn't count it right now.
Yeah. And as far as I know, we don't have any, but to your point, we've not got anything like that solid enough to rely upon. I just wanted to confirm we're really what the revenue source that we see is mostly the minor league baseball aspect of it. Okay. Are there other? I'll go John Quinn first.
Yeah. Ryan, part of
What?
One of the reasons we're having this as a public study session is to obviously inform the public, and I may be asking you some questions that I know the answer to, but I'd appreciate you going over so that anyone who's interested in following this, which I hope many people are, will understand it. Can you explain, first of all, where does Mura 2.0's money come from for the benefit of the public that's listening?
Great question. So Mira, any urban renewal, excuse me, or any urban renewal district, the money does not come from an increase in taxes, but it comes from an increase in the tax base. So what happens is an area is set, and once the value increases in that area, the city would receive, urban renewal would receive the additional tax increment of those properties inside of that area. And urban renewal would receive that in lieu of the city of Medford and other taxing districts receiving those as well.
So there's an assumption and an opportunity cost to that. The assumption or the hope is that the property would increase in value and therefore the tax would increase in value, because we can't really increase the percent. So we're relying on the value increasing. That's the hope. And then the opportunity cost is for every dollar that goes from property taxes to Mura and then to a baseball stadium is money that's not going from property taxes to Medford for projects to benefit the city in other ways, or to Mura to benefit the city in other ways, such as rehabilitating troubled properties or making low-income housing or elder housing or doing other nice things that we would all enjoy. So there's an opportunity cost and a hope built into that. Ryan?
Yes.
Okay. And it's 68 million of that hope and opportunity that we're rechanneling. So it's not really free money or money from another source. It's rechanneled opportunity cost.
It's not free money, you're correct.
Right. So it's money we're not spending on something else is my point, both within Mura and in general.
Yes.
Okay. And then Parks SDC, that would be money that we wouldn't be collecting as treatment SDCs. Am I right in understanding that?
Yes, the thought was to reduce the wastewater treatment SDCs in the same amount that the parks SDCs would increase. So they would essentially cancel each other out for a developer at least.
So that's an opportunity cost and an interesting ripple effect that you may not have thought of, although I bet you did. The opportunity cost would be it's less money available for us to create treatment capacity as we expand the city in other ways. We're just hoping we won't need it because we're expanding our plant. But of course, that could include, well, would that just be the plant, or could it also be part of the collection system that we wouldn't be able to spend money on?
That would just be the plant.
There's a different collection SDC, isn't there?
Yes, and the thought behind that was that because of the debt coverage that we're required to have for the bonds for the wastewater treatment plant, we have to set aside so many tens of millions of dollars extra over and above what we need just to ensure that we can make our debt payment, that we would have enough money available for any capacity increasing projects that we had through there, not necessarily through the SDCs.
The ripple effect that I bet you know, but I recently learned is RVSS sets its treatment SDCs based on Medford's treatment SDC. So if you cut the treatment SDC and increase the parks SDC, we're going to have to change our VSS as SDCs as well, or figure out what we're going to do with it, which we just set. Thank you so much, Ryan. So we'll have to rejigger that for a larger piece of the county as well, either track U or decouple. So that's interesting.
Well, and I will say that all of these are just potential ways to fund this.
I
These are
understand.
not set in stone.
I'm not criticizing, we spent a long time working on this in study sessions, but the public only gets to hear from us from time to time, and I just want to make sure we crunch the numbers together, because I'm very sure they care. Annual lease payment from the team is $8 million. That's not $8 million a year. It's $8 million total. What are we talking about?
This particular
wish,
figure,
but-
yeah, this particular figure was over the course of 30 years.
So is it essentially present value of 30 years of payments?
Yes.
Okay, and so that's one time, $8 million against 100 that they get to use the stadium.
Yeah, and this is not factoring in it being prepaid. It's actually annual with an escalator of 5% per year, 2.5%, 5% per year, I believe.
So it's not really money we would have to build anything. It's money we would hope to get if they stay, and if they continue to want to pay the higher rent.
Correct.
And if they stay, we can get to later, not with you. But so $8 million is what they're paying to rent something we're paying 100 for?
This was just a proposal from the team, an early proposal. This is not part of the actual lease negotiations yet. So I would envision all of these numbers are going to change.
Fair enough, but it still sounds like a pretty good deal. That's just my commentary. Unidentified sources are just that. And then we
Yes.
don't know how much the team is going to contribute, although we'll talk to DG about that shortly, I think, towards this sum. But you're 26 from somewhere else because we don't know from where currently.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Very helpful. Thank you very much, Ryan. Thank you, Mayor, for letting me ask my questions.
Were there questions down here at this end? All right, sorry. Okay, we've got our table set on slide 1. Ready?
Okay, I'll keep going. I'm going to go through these very briefly because they're, well, I'll go through this first. This is just in graphical form, the funding sources for the stadium. So the total cost of the stadium, obviously not the 86 million, as I mentioned, it's a little over $140 million. And so this just shows by funding source how much that funding source contributes to each one. So essentially what you saw on the last slide, just with prettier colors. These are the ones I'm going to go through a little bit more briefly because they're the same funding sources, they're just different amounts. And so this is the $100 million construction with a $70 million bond amount. And so the differences here are the park utility fee, $1.50 instead of $1, and for 30 years instead of for 15 years. And then the unidentified sources is a little bit higher at $5.8 million, and I believe the parks SDC amount stays the same. And then the last scenario is the $115 million construction with the $80 million bond issuance. And the difference here is the parks SDC is higher by about close to $4 million. The park utility fee would be $2 per month increase instead of the $1.50, and it would be for 30 years. And the unidentified sources would be about $7.6 million.
Let me before we get to risk, let me ask. There was an article in the paper recently. I thought it was a very well written and researched article, but it's essentially the basic concept of the public participation in these minor league stadiums. And there's other, I guess, benefits that get a little bit more. There's social benefits, and then there's redevelopment benefits, and then perhaps maybe if you are really redeveloping, kind of a different lessening of a burden on the city. But all of that aside, I thought that CAA had done sort of a rough idea of public versus like kind of an average public versus private funding kind of standard for minor league stadiums? I cannot remember it off the top of my head, but I thought I would just ask what in general is the average public contribution versus private on a stadium, if you remembered that.
Do you remember?
What I remember that, and I don't have it in front of me, is that there was a broad swath of what the public versus private contribution was. There wasn't a one industry standard percentage. I would say that the numbers we're discussing here are on the lower end in terms of the private contribution. But again, this is not something where we finish that negotiation. There's a lot of negotiation to go.
So, but in fairness, I think I think that's a well said and kind of set some guardrails. We are looking at being on the low end of private participation compared to stadium financing stacks.
I wouldn't say we're looking to be. I'm saying that's the
That's what we have
the
written
discussion
here.
right now. I would love it if it was 100% private participation, but
Yeah, you got to work on your negotiating skills there.
but that is a discussion that is a long way to go and is hard to progress when we don't know how big of a number we're talking about is, which is why we're not further along in that negotiation.
Okay, thank you. And I think you're handing off to him for risks?
Oh, absolutely.
All right, thank you. Well done, Ryan.
So this is the part where I feel like I throw cold water all over the very informative and great presentations that were made by the folks sitting behind me. There's no question that there are benefits and exciting things that can happen by bringing minor league baseball to town. But staff also feels that it's our responsibility to inform you of potential risks. And so you know, going into this exercise with eyes wide open, what some of those risks that we've identified are. So the first one is the franchise leaving. There's already been a couple questions on this. Minor League Baseball is not willing, and it's probably even fair to say that they're not able to make a long-term commitment. Staff feels that that is a low risk, but should it happen, it would be a heavy impact. We don't know how labor negotiations go. We don't know how what future franchise looks like. We could also develop a contract with the Elmore Sports Group that should Major League Baseball change their program, we have a contract that DG has to provide something at the stadium for the period of the contract. So there's ways around this, but it is a risk. Stadium cost estimates. As I noted when I went through this is a concept design only. I would say it's in the plus or minus 30% range. Personally, I would say be careful with the minus 30%. These things are not cheap. So the cost could increase substantially. Stadium construction costs, once we get the preliminary work done, that can still increase. And specialty and unique structures are particularly susceptible to cost overruns. For those of us that have been involved with building bridges, this is something we've learned early on in our careers, and I'm sure Mike can shake his head. Unique structures run higher risks because you don't build a lot of them. And so when you do, there's an increased risk in doing so. The timing of this, we've had numerous discussions with Minor League Baseball and with the Elmore Sports Group. They are in agreement that an April 2029 opening day is acceptable to them. They're not happy about it, but that they feel that they can make that work. I would note that that is still an aggressive schedule for us. In order to stand up Mura, in order to get the design work done, in order to get something built, that's an aggressive schedule. I think we can meet it, but it is aggressive. And then the last one on this slide is the timing issues. You cannot use Mira TIF funding retroactively. We cannot start construction, then stand up Mira and use those funds to pay for money we've already spent. That's prohibited by law. So we have to rapidly accelerate the Mira 2.0 process for adoption in order to use that funding. Next up is some These are more policy issues and potential legal issues around MIRA 2.0. Preemptively allocating MIRA TIF funding is a questionable planning process. There's no public involvement involved with it directly, and what you typically do in a urban renewal area is you say, we want to put an urban renewal area in this area. And you draw a boundary and you say, here's the kind of projects, and you develop a capital improvement list from that list of development, and it will generate a certain amount of money, and then you can get a capital improvement program together to go make those improvements and improve it. By just kind of saying ahead of the time, well, we want to do this, so then let's stand up MIRA to make it work. It brings up questions regarding a public process and planning. Is issuing or using 30 to 50% of all the MIRA funding for this single facility a prudent policy decision? It's a question that is a policy issue that you have, but it is a question that people will ask, because we're dedicating this for a time period of 30 years. And lastly, urban renewal districts have a financial impact on our partners. The school district, the county, and others, they are sometimes not big fans of urban renewal. And as we stand this up, we need to make sure that we cross all the T's, dot all the I's, and do this exactly according to the legal processes, because people will be watching, because some folks will struggle with this. And lastly, in terms of the potential risks, and Mr. Quinn kind of touched on some of this already, these are all based, Ryan's numbers were all based on estimates and projections. What happens if those things don't occur? What happens if we assume that we're going to have a 3.5% growth rate for the MIRA 2.0 district, and appreciation is less than that? We would be in a position where the city's got a problem, and we have to find additional funds because we borrowed the money and we owe the debtor, the creditor, that money, and we need to pay it back. So that would present a challenge to us. If lease payments become a problem, where somebody is having financial trouble and we don't get the lease payments, that would create a challenge for us, that we'd have to figure out how to cover that difference. And then lastly, the bond debt coverage. This is a special facility, and it's in the nature of this debt, we could be required to have debt coverage for the bonds that we issue that could increase the amount needed annually by $1 million or more in order to stand up a MIRA for a facility like this. So those are the risks that staff identified, and like I say, I don't want to discount the benefits, but we thought it was prudent to make sure that you see and understand the concerns and the risks that we see going to this. So that concludes all of our presentations. What I've done here is I've outlined 5 questions that I think council needs to grapple with in your dialogue. And these are done in a sequential manner. And what I mean by that is question number 1, does council desire to commit 30 to 50% of all future MIRA 2.0 revenues towards this single purpose facility? If your answer is no, this meeting is going to get over really quick, because that is the funding source that we've identified for this, and there's not a whole lot more to talk about if that's not something that you're comfortable doing. Is council willing to implement an increase to a whole bunch of other fees and car rental taxes, SDCs, et cetera, to supplement? If, again, that's not something that you're willing to do, then we're going to have a real problem figuring out how to finance this, and it might not be a doable project. Number 3, does council have a minimum, and this has been touched on already by a couple of you, does council have a minimum contribution from other entities? I put other entities, but it's DG. Sorry. That we expect for Elmore Sports Group to participate at a 5, 10, 15%, whatever that looks like. Council has not been clear with staff regarding that. And then if the answer to all those things is positive and we can move forward, lastly, we need now to move to the next step of doing preliminary design work, doing due diligence work, of doing the geotechnical, the other designs, et cetera. And the way that we're proposing to pay for that is dipping into MIRA 1.0 funds, and so does council approve and does council support using $500,000 to $1 million of MIRA 1.0 funds to go do that preliminary design work to continue this to the next step. And then lastly, I have a question for you at the very end. Does council support developing an RFP or an RFQ document to start the solicitation process for a conference center? As I noted, we're not seeing a lot of progress there, and we think it's probably time to go put that out. If the folks that we were working with previously want to propose on that, and I believe they will, then great, that would be awesome, and we can have them be somebody that would propose, but we want to see what else is out there too. So, Mayor, with that concludes all of our presentations. We apologize for going so long.
I think this is a big item to consider, so we'll take our time on it. We have 5 questions for council. Was there any questions for either staff or baseball folk before we get into that? Although one doesn't really involve any of those, but however, do you have a question for Mike Kerlinger? Did you have a question for baseball staff? Okay, and then it'll be Kevin.
Okay, John, 2 slides back. Preemptively assigning MIRA 2.0 funds. Is this like a questionable or non-traditional option, Eric, too? Or is this not an option?
No, it is a policy issue. It is spending money is clearly prohibited. Saying that we're going to use this money before the process is done can invite criticism saying, did you really follow a good sound public process of building a capital improvement plan, deciding what projects are priorities, et cetera, or did you just pick a stadium and say, let's go do that and we'll use these funds to build it? It raises some questions that we do not believe is illegal. Anything you want to add to that, Eric?
Just want to add, state law requires that we go through a public hearing process to stand up an urban renewal district. There's nothing illegal about knowing what you want to do before a public hearing, but the people testifying in the public hearing tend to be frustrated if they feel the mind's already made up before the hearing begins.
That's really the point of this one.
You mentioned in there the school district when it comes to losing money, but the school districts aren't paid for by local property taxes. The state funds children, so the school district doesn't lose anything from any MIRA, the current MIRA, any MIRA anywhere. So can you help explain why you brought that up?
The state is reimbursed. They do reimburse them, but every urban renewal I've been involved with, the school districts are always asking questions. How much is this going to impact us? Usually our answer is very little because the state does reimburse them, but it is a question the school district almost always ask. The county clearly is going to ask it. The fire departments frequently ask it. There's others that are impacted when you do something like this, and they'll be watching.
Trying to stay on the related stuff here. For Mr. Elmore, the thing that I'm sure like maybe 8 or 9 of us wrote, there's only 8 of us, Garrett's in the stands having a great time. So the thing that I imagine everyone wrote down as you spoke was $60 million. So based on your building 5 baseball stadiums, including one of them very recently at least, and then based on what you've heard from city staff, what is your take on having a number that is significantly different than what's been provided to us by city staff?
Well, my take on it is that as John pointed out, the initial, it wasn't really even, it was just a conceptual design. And so from talking with some of the construction people who were involved in making bids, they had very little information to go by. And so what they're doing is they're making sure that they're covering themselves and for something that's a very general design. And my experience is that the more specific you get in your design, the more you can do some cost engineering to take costs out of the construction. The other is that there have been, as I mentioned, ballparks built that, Peter can talk more about than I can, but there have been ballparks built recently that meet the standards for professional baseball that are coming in under $60 million. University of Utah and also Field of Dreams in Iowa. Obviously, it's different building in Utah. It's different doing construction in Iowa. But the fact is, it's that there are ballparks and there are things you can do to keep the cost down. And so feel comfortable, whether it's 60 or 65 or 67, but we feel comfortable in that. So, but, what staff has is what was given to them by the people that they asked to give them quotes. And so it's simply, we think we can value engineer a lot of things with more definition around what the ballpark looks like.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Can I have one more with a different person? I'm just going to go down the line. Randy, I don't have one for you, but thank you for your service on the Seattle Mariners. I'm a Mariners fan. Mr. Woodfork, I have a question for you, sir. So, thank you so much for coming. I don't know how many city councils you've had to present at over the years, but obviously, as discussed, a lot of cities have had to primarily upgrade the facilities they already had in order to meet the standards so they could keep the team they have. I don't know if this is a more unique situation where we already do not have a team. It's about Eugene not being able to put together a plan to make it happen, and so it's outreach to other communities that might be interested in bringing a team here. We haven't had a team in, I think, 30 years or so. So my understanding is that the Giants really just need an A-ball team, preferably on the West Coast. And the West Coast, I think, was the West Coast League. Is that the one in the Northwest? Is that the
Northwest League?
Yeah. So the Northwest League would prefer to have not lose a team because there's already not very many teams in that division anyway. But the question would be, is something that's happening here kind of unique in terms of trying to put together a package to try to make this happen? I've been I was listening to like a year of my life as John was talking. It only took like 45 minutes, but it was literally like a year of my life going through all these meetings. So is there anything unique in terms of kind of making it come together with these kind of funding packages?
No, I mean, as I think, the city staff has mentioned, each individual facility be either upgraded or a new facility. We've had, since 2021, 15 new facilities come on. We'll have 5 new facilities this year and 4 facilities last year that have all gone through different structures on how to fund. They're all unique. They're all different. They're all coming from TIFs or kind of mirror-like aspects to, different taxes, just the public ones coming on this year, the city of Ontario, California, a 0.5% sales tax, for the benefit of the community, decided to put that money towards a new stadium, publicly funded the entire stadium, very different than Hillsborough, which has a much larger private funding, bigger city, bigger community, Wilson, North Carolina, public funded, the vast majority of it. So again, each one's been different. Coming in, again, I think there's a lot that's been pointed to on the facility standards. The facility standards hadn't changed for a long time, 1994, and a lot of the things that we were looking to get better were kind of the player development facilities. Before, a lot of the focus was on kind of making money in the stadium, and that was the focus. Turning back to making sure that players are being developed appropriately. There was women's facilities. There was appropriate places to eat. They met all the standards that you'd want for any of your employees. That was kind of the focus, but each one of them has been very different. This one is, honestly, it's complex, but there's ones that are far more complex.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions? Maybe we'll have the standard questions back up on the slide there. Okay, you had a question, Mike?
Yeah, did you want to say something, Jess? I'm trying to jump in again.
I was just going to speak to this, but if you
Oh, no, I did have a question. So, Andy, do you mind if I ask you a question? I don't want you to come all this way and feel left out.
I appreciate that.
Sometimes the relief pitchers don't get in the game, and that's fine too, but yeah.
You've been in public service. Pretend you're a legislator again. I wrote down the way I want to phrase it. Why would you or wouldn't you support a publicly funded professional sports project?
That's a great question. Thank you. I would support, and I have been part of lots of discussions. And one of the reasons why I love minor league baseball and why I think it's a great investment and why I would make a choice to invest as a public official, because it works on so many levels. So for obvious reasons, I like to talk about bobblehead issues, okay, because I'm in the bobblehead business. But also when I was a legislator, and you as elected officials will appreciate that, there are just sometimes you get a topic and people just start nodding their head like they're getting it. And this is one of those issues because this works in terms of economic development. And in Spokane, we're the largest youth employer. We're the first job for hundreds of kids in Spokane every year. So it works for jobs, it works for economic development, it works for civic pride, as you've heard, it works for community engagement. And it works for visitor spending. We see a lot of visitor spending. Our hotels just love the fact that the Spokane Indians are in Spokane. So as a legislator, I would look at that and say, yes, 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 yes. Of course, as a public official, you've got to weigh the different priorities and make sure that it makes sense. But I always found this is, I like to talk about, sometimes we would feel like we're on defense a lot, like, oh God, we got to cut this or we got to cut that. And I always like to talk about, sometimes as elected, you also have to think about going on offense. What's the big new idea? What's the thing that we're going to do that we're going to look back a generation from now and say, that was a really good investment? Because it wasn't just something defensive. We weren't protecting. We weren't doing the worst, what's the best worst case. We're taking a big step forward. And that's what it always felt like with investments in minor league sports. Thanks.
Okay, so let's kick into question one, which is the key question. And again, we're not working backwards from the answer, but just pretend that a stadium was on a potential project list for urban renewal. Does the council wish to commit 30 to 50%? I'm going to throw out a comment on this just to kind of kick it off, which is, depends, right? If 50% of that MURA translated into some very large redevelopment project such that you are changing your actual tax base, maybe yes. If you're spending 50% and then when it gets done and says, where'd that money go? Because you didn't solve any problems. That's a different question. So I think what we're saying is, what do we think we're going to solve with the money, and how does everyone feel about it? So that's I will give Council President the initial.
Okay, yeah, and this is the one that I probably feel the most strongly about. First of all, you don't have to sell me on baseball. I've been a Giants fan for a long time. And I think you also don't have to sell me on the economic benefit. I get that. I get the community benefit, the economic benefit. Where I get hung up is the capital stack. I mean, there's a lot of unknowns in there that are undefined, and that makes me really nervous. But the MURA piece is probably the biggest one for me. I was on the MURA 2.0 advisory board, and we were very intentional about the different areas that we included in Medford because of the great need in various different parts of town. We had specific discussion about maybe not doing these huge projects, but rather leveraging a lot of smaller projects to reach a greater benefit. So this is tough for me because it feels like it goes against really, and maybe other people that were on that committee might have a different take, but that's really my big concern here.
So, being the other people who are on that committee, I share some of Jessica's concerns, actually. And, to me, the potential benefit of putting in a baseball stadium is huge. And I really go to Mayor, your point about depends. Because spending half of Mira's maximum indebtedness on substantial, actual construction that increases our tax base, that's an easy thing for me to see us invest that money. And that's, to me, the point of urban renewal. It's how do we expand tax base? Doing it speculatively with a hope that this development comes. I mean, there are lots of success stories in baseball and minor league. There are also some that are not as successful, if we're going to be honest. So doing it speculatively and investing in a project that actually generates no increased property tax revenue, because this would be a publicly owned facility, that's where it gets a little tougher for me. To me personally, I'm willing to take speculative risk. I think that's part of the job. I think that's part of what we should be doing as a city. I think taking risk to enhance our community, if you wait until it's 100% guarantee, you're never going to do anything. So, what does that number look like for me? Gosh, that's a really hard question. To me, the lower end of that number, where we're talking about this is a hugely unique opportunity, this is a hugely unique thing for the city, and are we going to risk a third of Mira's maximum indebtedness towards something like a baseball stadium? That's an area where I think I'd be a little bit more comfortable. When we start talking half of Mira funds, knowing the needs, knowing the areas in our community that will definitely benefit from Mira's funds, that will have direct result in economic development, it's hard for me to take that much of a risk with that much of the opportunity cost. So I don't know if that answers, but that's kind of where I'm feeling comfortable on the lower end, kind of, but not so much on the higher end of that one.
And you make a great point, and one I've probably made in these private meetings for however many months, many of those months that I've been in meetings, is we don't have the number. Numbers 1, 2, 3 all revolve around number 4. Yeah. And what we heard tonight was a owner of many minor league teams that have gotten stadiums built give a number. We have heard our professional staff give a different number. And I personally, no offense, but I think number 4 is number 1. In the terms of it's really hard to negotiate this and that when we don't have the number. If we put in, which is my idea of bringing the 1.0 funds into it, and they come back and they say it's $60 million, I think, personally, there's a great chance to move forward. If they come back and they say it's $120 million, I think there's a great chance that this does not happen. And so I've said it for a long time, and I'll say it here. I think that is the question. Is council willing to look at unallocated funds from Mira 1.0 to hire professionals that can look directly at that site, see all the different issues that have been taken up in terms of engineering and whatever else that might come up, and give us a number, or get us 30% or 60%. What is it? 30% to a number?
The $500,000 to $1 million would probably get us about a 10 to 15% design, but that would give us a much greater confidence in what the cost of the stadium is now, because there's some engineering that goes into that beyond just a concept design.
And when you get to that point, then you can also have those negotiations with baseball and the owner about what that stadium potentially looks like, or potential differences in trying to cut costs and things of that nature, right?
By all means, I guarantee you Mr. Elmore will be very interested in what we're building for him.
Okay. So that I think that's what I have, Mayor. No disrespect to number 1 through 3. It's obviously something to be on the mind, but with that good discussion between the council members there about 30 yes, 50 I don't know, that can really be solved in a great degree by going with the first step, which is number 4, of just moving forward, hire a professional to look at things and get us further data. Thank you.
So all that being said, the way that funding source would work, and again, we're clearly going through this step with a perhaps end game that you're going to commit Mira money to it. But if that is the funding source, we do have to use other sources at least for that early 7 to 8 years. So and I think number 2 is a very good question for them to ask, because there were discussions early on in this process about no raising of fees, no raising of SDCs, all that kind of thing to support this. So I think we all see this, and not to take it out of order, Kevin, because I think you've nailed what the real question is here tonight. That being said, at least our eyes open that other fees will be involved, at least partially. Okay. And then number 3, I would not want to be on the low end of the private participation. I'll just tell you that right now. So, yes, sir.
Just a quick point. If you were referring to the Grants Pass article, I think we all received a copy of that. And in that article, I think it said that taxpayer funding for the 2024 project, private was going to be 25% on that. So it's probably.
Yeah. Yeah, and I believe I had in my head it was 30, but there you go. Mr. Quinn.
Well, number 4, I get you have to. Thank you. I don't have Mr. West to help me. Takes a village, Garrett. Yeah, it's true, actually. No offense. It balances out the age average too, right? But number 4, why does Mira 1.0 have to pay it? It seems like the team can pay that, and they know what they want. What's the problem? Frankly, the more skin the team has in the game, the less I'm worried about them leaving, and that's a concern of mine. So why let the team pay for it? If they know what they want, let them pay to have an estimate about it. They're going to pay a lot more than $1 million if they're going to do the deal, way more. So let's get started. Let's put some skin in there. I'm fine with that, but we're not paying it. At least I'm not going to vote to pay for it.
Okay, it's an interesting idea.
Put the skin in, then we'll talk. Or not.
So, all that being said, we will not put the owner on the spot tonight, but
I will.
I got it. Other comments on 4. There's one about at least 100% participation by the team to do number 4. I'll go Nick, then Mike.
I agree with Kevin. I think we need to get a better answer here. I don't mean to put you on the spot, DG, but I do think that, I would love to see, especially at this stage, participation from the team in these early engineering stages. I think that would be a really good place for you to show your commitment to the city. We're not talking about a huge amount of money here. I don't think about this as, in my opinion, a fair value for the team is not paying the whole value of this. I understand how the economics of a team work here, but I do think we ultimately do need to move forward with this. We can talk around the bush on exactly which fees and how much percentages, but Kevin's right. If you don't have a number, if we don't have an actual dollar figure that we can really hold in our hands and love and caress, we are just spitballing, and that's just not productive. I'm tired of spending a year spitballing on different fees. So I say we move forward, and I would love to see the team participate in that.
All right, other comments on 4? Yes, Mike K. And then Kevin? Sure. Keating? Okay.
Yeah, I'll just echo that. I feel like we've always talked about this being a partnership, so I won't belabor that. We know that this is a stretch goal. We know that this is a reach for our city. It could be fantastic. We've said from day one, we may hit a point where we realize it's not feasible. I've always said I would be disappointed. I love baseball, but I'm not going to be irresponsible with our money just because I enjoy a sport. That being said, I'm willing to invest in taking that next step. I understand it's a lot of money. Just to get our 10 or 15% is not an insignificant amount of money. For the level, for the project we're trying to reach for, I don't think it's an unreasonable risk at this point to say, let's take the next step and see if it's viable. It may not be after this.
Yeah, I support, on the question number 4, I do support spending the money it takes to get a good number. I'm extremely worried about the number, not just the fact that it could be anywhere from 60 to 130. If you really think about it, then you add in the extra 30, then you add in the parking, then you add in the pit, then you add in the sewer line. This could balloon, and so it'd be irresponsible to do anything but get at least a better idea of what we're talking about than we have right now, if we're going to consider it at all.
So, can we give staff general direction that, one is, we want to be on the low end of future MIRA obligation. You're willing to increase other fees. There is an expectation of at least reasonable to average private participation in the project, and that there's a general consensus that the next step, the 10 to 15, the concept design with the better numbers is acceptable for using of at least some of MIRA 1.0 funds to many, but at least some negotiation on a split cost. Is that correct?
I guess if we're getting more granular on each one, I'm really hesitant on a straight fee increase. Shuffling some fees makes sense. But again, I'm still on board for say yes for number 4, because DJ, I'm going to be a bit of a smart aleck here, okay? Don't freak out. We suddenly decide we're going 50-50 on the best stadium that's been built for a minor league team in the United States. And in order to do that, we might have to raise the park fee by $1 for 15 years. That might be a gap I'm willing to bridge. On the flip side, we're building a pared down stadium that we think will probably mostly work, and we're going to have to raise it $3 for 30 years. I mean, that's going to be an easy no for me. So that specific element, I've said from the beginning, if we can do this without raising fees, yeah. If we can't, it's not a no, but it's a consideration.
Okay. Yes, go ahead, Jessica.
I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat. We've spent the last.
I don't really get to 1, 2, 3 until we talk about 4 and 5. And I guess 4, if I were negotiating for the city, which I'm not, and DG's happy about that, believe me. I say it's 100% the team, and that would be the show of faith. It's not about the money. It's about the show.
Yeah, 100%. And in fairness, John, I think that, yeah, you're nailed at a full commitment. I think that I heard a little bit more flexibility from others, but I think most people were leaning towards some participation at least.
And it's not so much the money. It's the expression.
Sure.
Of I'm in.
Mayor.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
And that's worth $500,000 compared to what can make in the future. Probably a good ROI.
I did have a quick conversation with Mr. Elmore, and he is willing to share in the fee. We didn't talk about specific amounts. That's something we could negotiate, but he is willing to help participate in that exercise.
Okay. So 1 through 4, we have general direction, yes?
I just wanted to share the same comment about park utility fees, that to me is a no. Like, I'm not even as flexible as Mike. Like, I just don't like the idea of park
Well,
utility fees used for the stadium at
Do
all.
we need to take a pause here? Because I don't know that you can do your first 7 years without some kind of other funding source, and maybe that's a
I'm fine with the shuffling of the SDCs, the car rental tax. I think there are other ways that you can skin that cat, but I'm not okay with the park utility
Do we need
fees.
to
It's
stop
different.
and have a very specific discussion about the park utility fee?
Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, but the bottom line is we looked for some potential fees. Are there other things we could do? There are probably other things. I'm guessing council's not going to like a lot of them, but there are other things we can look at. Is that fair, Ryan?
All right, so we're being fair. Okay. All right. So
Great
again,
answer,
1
Ryan.
through 4, we're good on that. Yes? The direction that was given to staff, general consensus, 100% from you, 100, duly noted.
And I'm not anti anyone. I really hope that they do get in and make us see we've got skin, so I can go, sweet, they're on board, let's get something done. I want to say that, but I won't have a reason to say it.
Sure. Nope, sounds good.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Did we get any kind of consensus on number 3 in terms of what percentage we were looking for? I know you and I were talking 25, 30, but
I think
like-
as a general rule, we are looking to be somewhere in a minor league stadium construction average, somewhere in there. And I think if Keating wanted to put a number to it, it'd be 25 minimum. Yep.
And I didn't have numbers before me, but a very helpful friend in the audience shared with me that on CAI Con survey, there was a broad swath. It was a wide bell curve, but the middle of that bell curve was 27%.
27, okay. All right, so number 5 has to do with the conference center that was brought up as really, by the way, that was a great history to how we got here, by the way, as Kevin noted.
For Kevin's year of his life?
It was, what's that? What was that?
I said for Kevin's year of his life.
Kevin a year's life, yeah.
I echo that exact
One of
same
10.
feeling.
And
so.
that's 1/10 of his time on council, so let's make that.
So.
1/9.
Yes, 1 out of 11, quite right.
Back to the entire, where this all really kicked off from is do we want to start the process on the conference center? So I have a question in regards to that. When staff is asking that question, some of the issues that go with this is we had that study that said, hey, downtown location is where that's at. Are you looking for direction that says we just want to see what's out there for a conference center, or are you trying to, what are we trying to dial down into?
So staff is approached frequently by members of our community that are interested in seeing a conference center move, that interested in seeing some progress made. A TLT tax was passed that would help facilitate the construction of that. And we're frequently asked, when are you going to get something going? And so we've been working with one local land use consultant on that. And like I said, there might be a lot happening there. We're not seeing it. So the question that we're really trying to solve is it time to look elsewhere? Because we have been approached by other developers saying, we would love to build a conference center in this location and we'll do it for you. Right now, we've said we're not ready for that yet. So really the question that we're interested in, do you want us to start exploring those other options? The downside of it is, we don't know if that will be in the Creekside corridor area. And I think there was a lot of energy early on that area developing as a whole was very attractive. But somebody could come out and say, we want One West Main building. We want to locate a conference center in One West Main. That could come up. There will be other ones as well. And so is council willing or desirous to take that next step, or would you prefer to continue to stay the course and see what happens with the existing project that's identified as described earlier?
So, in my opinion, I like the Creekside Corridor concept. I still think this is a really good concept, and this is something that I want to do, but I understand that there are some challenges, and we're running into some difficulties with that specific design. I mean, so kind of what I would like to see happen here is kind of a really open-ended thing, that maybe, and so maybe I guess maybe the way I'd like to see this is have staff kind of put together what they think this should look like and then come back to us so we can kind of refine what that proposal is, highlighting, like the scope. I mean, because if somebody comes to us and says, hey, we'll gladly take that money and we're going to build a conference center. No hotel, no extra projects, no nothing. I'm like, that's kind of a boring. I mean, if that's the best proposal we got, okay. But if somebody's like, hey, I want to do something, maybe it's in a different area than we thought, but like, I'm going to do all of this kind of stuff. Wow, that's really interesting. We can take the TLT dollars for the conference center and use that to seed a larger development. So I am interested to see what's out there. I don't really want to put together some kind of strict scoring document because I don't even know what that looks like ahead of time. I'm interested in seeing ideas that people have. The conference center has been a long-term goal for the community, and if there is something that we can get going sooner rather than later, I would be all for it. But I will say that I still think the Creekside Quarter concept is the right one. I hope that project is going to be able to compete for this, and we'll see that move forward, because I still think it's such a great location, and so it checks a lot of my boxes already. So for me, it's not so much that I want to go out because I want to go find something different. It's that I want to respect the community's desire for this facility with understanding the challenges that the current proposal has.
Well said. One thing I'm concerned about is, feasibility studies do have expiration dates. I mean, and it's already on a couple years now. And so the longer we wait to utilize this, the less valuable it's going to become to whoever wants to use it. And the whole reason that we were willing to invest in it is to allow private development to use it to get their project done. So I don't know. I agree with Nick in that, I want it to be downtown. I'd love for it to be part of a greater development, but at some point we're going to have to make the decision to move on and get it done.
The last thing that Councilor Ayers said is what has been on my mind is what is the timing, right? There's no signed agreements with anyone that says we will work with this developer in this area. Like, this has always been a pretty free-ranging conversation and never a pen to paper, this is what's going to happen. I just don't know, right? That's something that, even with all these discussions, I just don't know what the right thing is to do in terms of working with a partner that has been able to bring concepts to the table. But that's just the main thing, as I don't know what's appropriate, right? But on the other side, if there's not the progress being made, maybe through no inaction of their own, it's just trying to acquire property is not always an easy thing to do, right? You can't force anyone to do anything. And, I don't know the nature of the discussions, but obviously it hasn't been as fruitful as we all hoped, some time ago. So I'm lukewarm just in terms of I wouldn't want to lose a potential developer. So maybe there's that soft talk in terms of, maybe it's time, or how much more time do you need, or something like that. That would make me feel a little more comfortable with putting out an RFP or RFQ. Thank you.
John.
Mayor and Council, I think Councilor Card's idea is a really good one. We could give you basically the sideboards and some criteria that we're looking for an RFP and RFQ, bring that back to you. One of the beauties of the RFP process is we don't have to say this is exactly what we want. We can put out an RFP that says Medford wants to do this. Tell us what ideas you have, because the developers are smart and they are very creative. And we say, here's kind of what we're looking for. What can you offer us? And put that out, and we can see what we get. But we can put some criteria on that, some sideboards on that, present that back to you. And if that looks good, we could proceed in that direction.
Okay. I think general consensus is move forward on that. We'll take a final look at what the proposal document looks like and kind of go from there. I think there's an old saying about the whole enchilada had great appeal to a lot of members on council, but it is, we just have to move forward with what we can do. So, all that being said, to everyone that traveled all this way through very difficult winter storm weather conditions, I hope the flights home are much safer and smoother. But appreciate you coming out, and appreciate everyone that came to watch here in person and on TV tonight. I think we have some, that's the end of our, I guess, study session tonight. Council officers?
I'm ready. All right, so we had a few topics tonight on our favorite topic, Main Street, coupled with our other favorite topic, parking. So there was a request to look at an alternative for Main Street that involved diagonal parking that would add 40 additional parking spaces. That's a 30% increase. We did agree that that should be discussed a little bit further. Tying into that was the discussion about perhaps not all the info was available when we were making a decision on this. And so we are going to look at having a hopefully brief study session as soon as possible. Also tying into that was the discussion about coming up with a plan that utilizes other modes of multimodal transportation, such as alleys, low-traveled streets. Nick brought up that the Transportation Safety Action Plan was just implemented. This is a good thing to try to tie into it, as well as implement it into the TSP update. And so all of those things are kind of being discussed at the same time to look at. There was also another discussion about us coming forward with a formal resolution that the city of Medford is pro-development, and putting that out there. So Garrett is going to look at some language around that and bring it back to us for discussion. We talked about the Pear Blossom Parade and who's participating and where they're going to be located. It sounds like we only have not heard back from Mr. Smith.
Madam Chair, I've heard back from him now.
Oh, thanks. Okay. So I think he was the last one that we didn't have a response from, so everybody's squared away on what that's going to look like. Our planning director, Michelle King, came to us to talk about potentially doing some design standards to allow more flexibility in regards to townhouse and multifamily designs. We just need some direction from council to allow them to go ahead and look at that a little bit more closely and bring back some code changes, talking about design standards with townhouses versus the row housing that we were discussing recently. So I think we just need to give a thumbs up that we're okay with staff doing that.
Do we need a formal motion?
Can I just add a little color to that before you do the motion? Which one piece of that is that townhomes are allowed in all kinds of different zones. So we have some, what our standards are kind of set up for right now is more if it is done in a single family environment. That's a lot more compatible. The standards we have are a lot more compatible there. But as we saw in that Mura study session, maybe they're not as much during in high density multifamily zones. So if you go to look at these standards, my suggestion was to concentrate greater density zones and not so much about changing what's allowed currently in single family.
Did we need a formal motion on that?
We can't have a formal motion.
Yeah, we would love a formal motion directing staff to do so.
And it's a study session, but with this being unrelated to the topic of the study session, being related to council officers, and I mean, we could give a thumbs up and have a motion next time. I am not going to lose sleep if we just do a motion directing staff tonight. I don't know if it's technically kosher. If you want to be super technically correct, could give a thumbs up this time and a motion at the next business meeting.
I like being technically correct because that is the best kind of correct.
I thought you were going to be a cowboy and make the motion.
Oh, no. I was, but then Eric reminded me that this is technically the correct way to do it.
I mean, I don't think anyone will arrest us if we do a motion. Okay, we'll have a formal motion at the next meeting, but planning staff can get an early start on it before then. Thank you.
That sounds great. And then just we briefly discussed where we're having our study sessions and why we haven't been in the Prescott room lately. That's it.
Apropos of the Main Street. And Garrett's here too. We need the long arm of the law. Apropos of Main Street, I mean, certainly I have strongly no interest in revisiting our vote, and I don't think any of the four of us do, I hope. But there's nothing wrong with looking at ideas as we go back to the prior format. And the one thing I am concerned about was when Sonny Spicer spoke about child safety. As we reflect on things, we should reflect on that as well. That's all. And I know. So no change, but let's think about the kids.
So
well, no. There's you overestimate my thinking.
One of the, I guess, just to add a little bit of color, one of the thoughts was, what are the actual goals to be accomplished on Main Street? Is it, and to make sure that whatever currently right now, it goes back to what we all know has worked. Does it accomplish all the goals that the council has for the downtown area as it is? Whether that's safer parking for new uses that have come up, and hopefully are long-term uses. But that's really, I think, one of the things that got hit on that.
Mayor, I just wanted to emphasize, it's in no way a backtrack, but there's nothing wrong with not having kids get hit by cars.
Yes. And then there's concerns about Prescott Room and archivability, which is why we have study sessions if we expect a crowd are coming in here, because the recordings don't work right in the Prescott Room. Just as a little, and there may be some thought going to the future on that. Anything else?
Council or committee and commission reports?
Anybody? Sorry.
Sorry, you.
I have two reports. One is today the Transportation Commission met. Primary item today was the TSAP, the Transportation Safety Action Plan. As Jessica mentioned, the Transportation Commission has forwarded a favorable recommendation that's going to be coming to planning next, I believe, and then it'll come. Oh, is it just straight to us? Okay, Dan's pointing at us, so it'll come straight to us. Great, so much fun. Also had the Rogue Valley MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization meeting. As a reminder, the MPO is responsible for sort of managing our local federal dollars as they kind of get distributed around. Medford was selected as to chair that organization for the next year, so I will be the chair, or whoever is, Dan, I guess, is the backup. So, but there's a couple other responsibilities that go along with that, including potentially some travel for state, because it's part of the whole state system. So, but anyway, so that's some good things for Medford going forward.
February 19th, we had the Hospital Facility Authority Annual Board Meeting. It was riveting, and it went really long this time. I think about 25 minutes. Whoa. I know. They nominated officers. PRS reported that they had an unmodified opinion of their audit review, and Asante's financial overlook went from negative to stable. They gave us a strategic priority review, and they increased their recruitment. This afternoon, I had my very first Travel Medford Tourism Council, and that was actually really fun. And I'm happy I'm on that commission or council now. And I won't necessarily give a review of everything because I'm sure it's available, but financial overview, some data metrics, overview of bills at the legislature, discussion of their community partnership grant guidelines, and then some updates on tourism promotion and sports tourism. And I won't say anything else in case TJ's waiting to surprise some people at another meeting about some fun announcements they had. Mike, don't tell anybody. They got where is TJ here? Is Warren here? Can I say this?
Public meeting.
He announced it at our meeting today. It's public, right? They got a $10,000 grant from the Oregon Wine Board for like a Savor Southern Oregon promo. I'm butchering what it's called. They got some good support.
Yeah, that's good. Excellent. Anyone else? Okay, cool.
Okay, let's adjourn from this, and we have executive session here in, let's call it 6 minutes. Thank you, everyone.